Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. It's time to have a look at the Battle Pass stuff once again. After all of the games of the last few days, the leaks have finally confirmed what the vehicles are going to be. The first one being the Murmansk, which of course is the USS Milwaukee, the cruiser from America that was given as a training ship to the USSR after the war. Should be very similar to other Rank 3 cruisers from America. And then also, you have the HE-177A3/R3, which is basically a HE-177, but it has access to a new toy, which is the HS-293. So it looks like we're getting something similar to what the Japanese got with their guided missile, which they have on their bomber. The Germans get a version 2. The Battle Pass itself is going to be called Guided Fury, which obviously seems pretty standard, especially since the main selling point of it is the Henschel HS-293. So we'll get into what the 293 is, overall thoughts about this, and obviously just the fact that this kind of seems a bit sad. What this Battle Pass is looking like. Hopefully, at the same time as this Battle Pass, though, we'll have an anniversary event. Hopefully, we'll have, obviously the sales and a new update and stuff. So that should hopefully be a little bit better than what we have in front of us. So obviously, we don't need to focus on the Milwaukee. That's something that we've obviously already talked about in the past. It's just a Trenton, which was given to the USSR and then given back. So yeah, it's one of those gap fillers, which will be a nice premium for people to grind out with the Soviet Union in their Blue Water tree. It also should have premium bonuses and also be useful for dailies and specials. And since, the USSR doesn't really have too many options, it's the best option that exists. Then, let's get into the HE-177. So this is the Greif. We already have the HE-177 in the game, actually. If you haven't played it, I would actually recommend it. It is pretty fun to play. It isn't one which is, too bad to play. The one that we have right now is the A5, which is slightly different to the one we're going to get, but it really shouldn't be too different between it. The major thing that this vehicle has is its engines, which are actually really cool. The DB610. Now imagine if you took two DB605s, and you can actually see this in the X-ray on the Greif and War Thunder. Imagine if you took two of them and you just stuck them together. That's literally what a DB610 is. It looks kind of funny and ridiculous. It's on the JU-288 and it's also on the HE-177. That's why it only has two engines technically, even though it technically is four engines if you want to look at it like having them split. Now, the problem when you actually put two massive engines together is they generally don't cool very well, and that's an issue the Greif had in the Second World War, and also even in War Thunder. So the variant that we're getting in War Thunder now, the A3R3, should be very similar to the A5, but it'll have access to the Henschel. So what is this thing? It's a guided bomb, or is basically the way to put it, but depending on how you want to see it, or how you want to mark it, it's either a guided bomb or a guided missile. It's one of those which is named as the first kind of anti-ship missile, which was around the place. It does have a rocket motor in it, so technically it's a guided missile, but for some reason it's also one of those which is known as a glide bomb, even though it has some rocket propulsion in it. Not for too long though. The actual rocket propulsion in it only gave it thrust for about 10 seconds, but this meant that generally it could even have an operational range up to about 8.5 kilometers, which is quite nice. So this works very similarly to some of the other things that we have in the game, very similar to the one in the Japanese tech tree, the missile which was there that we talked about the other day. But also you have stuff like the Fritz X, which is just a glide bomb. That one doesn't have propulsion, so see this as a Fritz X, but has a little bit of oomph behind it. And that means it'll be easier to get onto the target, and also you'll be able to stay further away from the enemies with this thing. Now, this HS-293 was used quite extensively in the Second World War, a lot more than many other kind of weird and wonky designs. This one was not exactly incredibly successful. It was mainly used for anti-shipping, so it was able to hit quite a lot of British machines and also some other, but mainly British machines, and it did end up sinking some ships. They employed about 1,000 of them. They used it from mid-war onwards, and yeah, it did its job okay. The Allies did figure out how to jam the signal, because the way that this worked is, of course, you had an operator in the plane itself. They would guide the missile in, and then, you know, it would hit the target. But the operator did realize, or sorry, the Allies did realize how to block the different frequencies that it was running at, so therefore they turned it basically into a dumb bomb, and it wasn't able to always hit its target. This thing also does have some flares on the back of it, though. I think it should have about 5, so that's how you would guide it in, which is pretty cool, and it would just fly in and you just follow those, and it should be very easy. Very similar, once again, to the Fritz X. And also, the payload on this thing, it's 500 kilos. Basically, the 500 kilo bomb was in the center of it, so it was very much more designed for precision compared to anything else. You're not going to get a big 3,000 kilo out of this, or a 1,500 kilo, or anything like that. It's just a 500 kilo bomb itself. There are also a bunch of different variants of the HS-293 that they could bring in if they wanted to, which tried different methods and maneuvers, but I think they're going to be pretty simple with this thing. It'll just be another keyboard-guided missile that you can use in War Thunder. Very similar to what we've seen before. You know, stuff like the Nords, for example, have very similar mechanics, but the vehicle from the Japanese tree, I think, is the one which is closest to this idea. Now, the Battle Pass itself, being called Guided Fury, is quite funny, but also this is pretty dull, right? I think it's fair to say this one's a very weak Battle Pass compared to what we've seen before, and I understand the idea that a lot of people say where you can't really you can't really make people happy about these things, because no matter what you do, you're going to annoy somebody, whether it's kind of exclusive content in the Battle Pass, and therefore, you know, if people don't get access to the Battle Pass, they get annoyed if they don't get it. Then if you do a bunch of copy-paste stuff, then obviously people complain too. But for me, if you just have a look at the general level of this one compared to previous, it's pretty low. Like, it's it's pretty low. So I'm hoping what they do here is they improve the Warbond shop to match up and keep the scales balanced in terms of what we see. Because if they don't do that, then I think this is going to be a pretty rough one. The Sholef being the main reward last time, and also it being at a BR where it's pretty much ineffective, and also with this Battle Pass having some kind of interesting and unique stuff in it, but also not very useful, let's be honest, especially when you compare it to a standard HE-177, which has the Fritz X's and also has access to some pretty crazy other armaments. I don't know why you would ever take the HS-293 unless you're able to take quite a lot of them. It just seems kind of odd. But the simple fact is, there are areas where they can improve it. They can, with the Warbond shop, add a bunch of stuff to it if they want to. They could add in a box for modifications for a specific vehicle. They could add in a box for camouflages. They could add in more high-rank premiums in the Warbond shop instead of just some rank 1 ones, which are pretty dull. They could also add in many other things, returning vehicles if they wanted to. They could add in a blueprint for a vehicle and then grind out the challenges for it, and then you get access to it. Something that we've talked about quite a lot. There's many options to these things. So I'm really hoping that they take them, because if we're going to lose value in terms of the unique vehicles, which is okay, because remember that the fact is the Battle Pass is one of those problems where if people miss it, they don't get access to the cool stuff, and that sucks. But at the same time, what has to be done is now the Warbond part needs to be improved to match that, and I'm just hoping that they end up doing that. If they don't, that kind of sucks, so we'll have to see. Let me know what you think about these vehicles, and also what you'd like to see out of the Battle Pass. As always, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank GMG Smiley, CD Beans, Chieftain Mike, EMN3 Galaxy, Tulio Pontecorvo, Brendan Quinn, Carrion Crow, Gus Irenicus, Pyman, Wartinder, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, Martinez, B. Young, Ozzy Panzer, Alan Hacker, Liam Shear, Opium Prime, Lafouche, Sem Aslan, Uncle Bean, and Derek R. for supporting the channel.